Despite its childish and wildly immature nature, Talking with Dinosaurs is not intended for children. It has blasphemy, sweary words, sexy talk, and bad, bad thoughts. It is for entertainment purposes only, and while care has been taken to keep information as accurate as possible, paleontology is an ever-growing field with new data and theories constantly changing how we see these prehistoric monsters, so we make no guarantees about accuracy. Not that it matters, paleontologists are just making it all up as they go along anyway. And to my mum, I'm still, very, very sorry. Tēnā koutou katoa. It's me, your host, hero and protagonist, Stefan Ato, broadcasting Talking with Dinosaurs, the world's #1 not-safe-for-work comedy dinosaur fact podcast hosted by a New Zealander from the warmth and safety of my home office. Yes, it turns out that what I thought was a reptiloid prison camp the whole time was actually just the Southland Museum and Art Gallery in my hometown of Invercargill, New Zealand. And who I thought were shape-shifting security guards were actually just the museum workers and visitors reacting to the large ginger man running around screaming about lizard people. Apparently, my constant attacks against the building itself, which in my defense I did genuinely believe was the headquarters of an incredibly powerful and evil conspiracy to control all our lives, eventually damaged the building so badly that the museum has had to be completely shut off from the public. It was at this point that they finally hunted me down, tranquilized me, and shipped me off to Auckland to debrief me. After they finally managed to convince me that I had in fact been mistaken for the last, 6 months, that is embarrassing, they very kindly agreed to let me see the dinosaur exhibit in the Auckland Museum, on the condition that I wear a shock colour in case I lost control again. Thankfully, the only things I lost control of were my tear ducts, as yes, I did tear up just a little at the majesty of the unique theropod Cryolophosaurus and the Malawisaurus, a relatively dainty titanosaur from Africa, which you can see on the Talking with Dinosaurs Instagram feed. Then they shipped me off home, where I sit now, safe and sound. I would like to point out my outrageous behaviour was not caused by any kind of mental illness, as mental illness is incredibly unlikely to make a person dangerous in most situations, but a combination of an overactive imagination, mistaken identity, and a constant cocktails of tranquilizers and psychoactive drugs. I mean, it could have happened to anyone. So I apologise to the people of Southland for the fact that they are without a museum for an indefinite length of time, but I mean, come on, it's the largest pyramid in the southern hemisphere. What did they expect to happen? I just have to remember that there is no reptiloid Illuminati. All hail the reptiloid Illuminati. Anyway, you didn't come here to hear me ramble out a crushed excuse to stop making prison camp jokes in light of the current political climate, nor to hear me talk about obscure tall museums in the southern tip of New Zealand. You came to hear me talk about dinosaurs. And I decided it's time to tackle what is quite possibly the biggest controversy in dinosaur history. I speak, of course, of the mighty Brontosaurus, the 22-metre long, 17-ton Brontosaurus, which translates to thunder lizard, one of the best dinosaur names of all time. All time. Was a diplodocid discovered in 1879 by O.C. Marsh, a very famous paleontologist. Marsh was balls deep in what was known as the Bone Wars with fellow paleontologist Edward Drinker Cope, who was famous for having the most desperate call for help in his name I've ever heard. We don't drink to Cope, Edward. Hunt dinosaur bones instead. And that's what he and Marsh did. Their Bone Wars, named for the dinosaur bones they discovered, not for their sensual love affair unfortunately, involved them rushing to discover as many dinosaurs as possible during the end of the 19th century, while simultaneously trying to sabotage the other at every turn. This actually sounds like it would make an amazing adventure comedy film. Think Wild Wild West meets Indiana Jones. Actually no, don't think about that. That's awful. But it's my idea anyway. No stealing. You legally have to tell me if you're a thought thief, otherwise it's entrapment. Is it entrapment? Maybe it's usury. Is that theft from bears? I can't remember. Now, Marsh described Brontosaurus excelsius. Jesus, that name just gets better and better, doesn't it? as quickly as possible so he could move on to other dinosaurs to describe. Over the next 25 years, Brontosaurus went on to capture the world's imagination, which is hardly surprising with a name that sounds like it should have been a mid-80s prog metal band that would not only kick your ass, but would do it in an atypical time signature. How do punches in the head feel in 11.8? Well, we may never know, because in 1903, noted killjoy Elmer Riggs decided that the Brontosaurus was too close to the boringly named Apatosaurus, and decided, for everyone, that they were the same creature. It's a shame that Riggs made this frankly terrible call, because he was quite the noted paleontologist himself. But, as we've learned, at this point paleontology was a bit more of an art than a science. And in this case, it ended up being like the art a 7-year-old brings home. They sort of have to keep on the fridge for a couple of months to keep them happy before joyfully unloading it onto the grandparents. Everyone agreed this was a crap name, but went along with it because it seemed to be the go, and, well, everyone else was doing it. Everyone, that is, except scientist Henry Osborn, who set up a mounted Brontosaurus display at the American Museum of Natural History, presumably while simultaneously flipping off the scientific community, shotgunning a Four Loko, and popping a mean kickflip. Osborn wasn't super worried about accuracy, as in his rush to make the first complete sauropod skeleton, he missed out several important features like the feet and tail, which he just took from the other species, and he had no idea what the head looked like, so he just made one out of random bits of other dinosaurs. When the skull of the Apatosaurus was first discovered in 1909, rather than add it to the creature that the vast majority of scientists agreed was the Apatosaurus, Osborn once again told them to shove it up their ass, and insinuated that he knew their mother a bit better than was proper at the time. It's worth noting that Osborn wasn't a staunch defender of Marsh or the name Brontosaurus. He just gave zero fucks. Probably also worth mentioning that he was the first to describe a couple of wee dinosaurs known as Velociraptor and Tyrannosaurus. I don't think they're going to be very popular though. Unfortunately, he was also an unabashed racist and eugenicist. Damn it, why can't any of these old-timey paleontologists just be cool? Now, once Osborn died in 1935, there was no one left to carry on the name of Brontosaurus, and while the name remained incredibly popular in popular culture, it pretty much died in the scientific community. And that is where the story of the Brontosaurus ends, until the 1990s. Rockstar paleontologist, author, and star of episode 28 of Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Robert Baker, started actually looking at the bones of the Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus, and he realized that, while they're similar and definitely closely related, they probably weren't the same creature. Like the tiger and the lion, the elephant and the mammoth, and Kmart and Walmart, they were slightly different boxes of frogs. In 2015, a group of researchers released a massive study of diplodocids and announced, "Brontosaurus is back, baby! Oh yeah!" We may lose Stygomoloch and Dracorex Hogwartsia as badass dinosaur names, but at least we get to keep Brontosaurus. Or do we? One study, unfortunately, does not science make. To this day, paleontologists are divided on whether or not Brontosaurus counts as a separate species, and while they may seem like doddery old naysayers, till more studies have been made, it's very important not to just roll over because someone said so. I mean, after all, that's how we lost the Brontosaurus in the first place. Alright, probably time to give this mighty stomper a rating. I have to give it a 12 out of 10 for sticking in there through the difficult century where we pretended it didn't exist. It never gave up, and for that it demands a round of thunderous applause. Thunderous, get it? It's the Thunder Lizard. That was gold. You guys don't deserve me. Right, after the break we've got our Q&A section and a brand new spanking segment. Ooh, stick around for that one, right? Yeah.
Did you know a turkey puppet once ran for the presidency of Ireland? Did you know that meat once rained from the skies of Kentucky? Did you know that there was an emperor of the United States for a while? Then listen to the Wiki Ship Down podcast.
We live in an age when the sum total of humanity's knowledge can be found in your pocket on a smartphone at any given time. But when that knowledge is peer editable, like it is on Wikipedia, what does that say about mankind? So follow us down the digital rabbit hole as we drink, joke, and curse our way through the random button on Wikipedia and see where our journey through humanity's knowledge takes us.
While you're at it, follow us on all social media at Wiki Ship Down. I'm Ruth Ann.
I'm Ryan, and be sure to find us every Wednesday on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Okay, we are back with our Q&A. I gave up a long time ago trying to name this fucking section, So let's just power on through, shall we? Just the one question this week to make way for our new section and to hoard the precious resource that is questions. This week's question is, surprisingly, not in any way related to dinosaur boners. Next week's question definitely is though, so don't worry at DinoFuckMesaurus, you're up then. This question is from Jesse Hawley, a wonderful scientific polymath and host of the Interonauts podcast for the CSIRO, which is some kind of Australian conspiracy science thing. I don't know, I didn't really look into it. Great podcast though. He asks, here in Australia, it's only just turned winter and I'm already sick. It might be glandular, the kissing disease. Alright. And it got me thinking, is there any evidence of dinosaurs coming down with the cold or of any other illnesses? Well, to be honest, Jesse, you're probably better equipped than me to answer this, but thanks for letting me take a swing at it. Dinosaurs almost definitely suffered from various forms of Cretaceous colds and Triassic typhoid. There's plenty of evidence that dinosaurs suffered from insect-borne diseases like malaria, as well as parasites. That's right, someone out there has found fossilized dinosaur dung full of parasitic worms, and that's why science is wonderful. Some even believe that these were a major cause of the extinction of dinosaurs, but most researchers still consider big rocky blowy-uppy to be the main cause. But what diseases did they carry, and how did their bodies fight them? As with a lot of questions on here, we will probably never know. Germs are pretty bloody hard to find in fossil records, so my dreams of someday contracting dino herpes will probably remain that. A dream. You can check out Jesse on the Interonaut podcast by the CSIRO, where he talks about real science with a lot less dinosaur gentles. There is still some though, so you'll get your fix. Alright, it's time for our brand new segment that we're trialling. This segment was suggested by frequent collaborator and friend of the podcast, Adam Hobbit Donahue, designer of the show's fantastic logo. It's called Great Contributions to Dino Science by Non-Paleontologists because fuck those guys. This segment is all about those who discovered great discoveries or inspired others to do so, who didn't necessarily have the title of paleontologist, which, let's admit it, until pretty recently just meant white guy with rich parents who likes dinosaurs. Our inaugural contributors are extremely well known, probably the single name associated most with the dinosaurs. I speak, of course, of the Flintstones. Without their intrepid, gonzo-esque journalism, we would never have known that birds could be used as record players, mammoths made fantastic showers, and sauropods were very effective cranes. They truly deserve the greatest of all science accolades to be talked about by me briefly. Well, that's it for another episode. I would like, as usual, to thank Al Electricity for making the fantastic music for the podcast. Make sure you check him out on SoundCloud, and if you do need anything composed for you, hit him up. He's really good. And I'd also like to thank Adam Hobbit Underfoot Donahue for the constant support and the frankly brilliant logo he designed for the show. Special shout out to everyone who has dropped in to check me out after hearing about me on the Friend Zone with Tim Batt and Guy Montgomery. I genuinely just wrote them a message to say thanks. I did not expect them to dig up my podcast and talk about it on their show. I hope it's lived up to yours and their expectations. And if you're listening, Guy and / or Tim, live every moment, love every day. Feel free to drop me a line to let me know how I did, make a suggestion, or to ask a question to be answered on the show. You can fling those through to talkingwithdinosaurs@gmail.com, tweet them at TalkingDinoCast, or post them on the Facebook page or in the Facebook group Talking with Dinosaurs, Dinophiles Anonymous. I'll leave you pondering this. Could even the reptiloid Columinato stand up against the combined forces of Dickbot, Brady the Rat King, and James Reed from the Feelers? Well, thank you. I've been Stefan Ato, and we've been Talking with Dinosaurs.